and Facebook. Thank you guys all for joining us today. I'm going to kick off with sharing my screen. Let me know if you guys can see it. You guys able to see my screen?
Yep.
Awesome. All right, so my name is Monica Rojas. I'm the membership and inclusion specialist at Palm Beach Tech. And today we have Tim Goering joining us for a workshop, our Friday workshop on crafting your 5, 30, and 60-second intro. All right, so just for you guys, for the people that don't know, we're Palm Beach Tech. Our goal is to build South Florida into a tech hub. And, we do so by, creating these events, these networking events, or even just providing the talent, the growth, and the support that our community needs. And this is just a perfect example today. Tim's going to give us some tips. And throughout the week, we do different events. We also host a hackathon that's coming up. I'm going to share a little bit more about that. And we have awesome partners throughout the community. So if you're able to look down a little bit, we have 909 Tech Runway. We partner with different organizations from Miami as well. And this is just our community creed. Palm Beach Tech is a wholeheartedly committed, we're committed to building a welcoming, collaborative, and inclusive community for all. And we definitely put people first here. So, oops, okay. And these are just a few of our current members. What's great about our tech companies is we have City Furniture. They're a tech company that sells furniture. And then we have Modernizing Medicine. And you also see Florida Crystals. And we have a wide range of different companies that are helping build South Florida. And our goal is just to retain talent, provide job opportunities, and show everybody that South Florida isn't just full of palm trees. We have some awesome people down here too. All right, and these are just a few of our events. We host 4 events per week. Like I said, this is one of them, our Friday workshops. Every Monday night, we do a tech talk. It starts at 5:30. We do networking, and then the presentation follows and starts at 6. And then Tuesday mornings, we do community coffees where it's more of like a panel discussion. We bring in, industry experts or just, local business leaders who want to share, who want to give back to our community by sharing their thoughts. And then Wednesdays, we have our podcast, and you can actually find it on Spotify as well. It's the South Florida Tech Podcast. And we interview local entrepreneurs, business leaders in South Florida who have made it, who are growing our community every single day. Right, so I'm so excited to share. We have our Palm Beach Tech Hackathon coming up next weekend. The theme is Coding for Good. So you can either come alone or you come with a team, and the winning team actually creates a solution for a local nonprofit. And then they win a cash prize, and then the project will actually be used to support this nonprofit. And we're sponsored by Office Depot, FPL, Venture Cafe, and Media Ops. All right, and these are just a few of our membership benefits. We have weekly newsletters. We have speaking opportunities like this one. We also do job listings and resume distributions, and that helps us, build our tech talent down here. And we do a lot of member spotlights where we highlight the awesome things that some of our members do. And lastly, we have member exclusive peer groups. So we connect local thought leaders, and they share and discuss every month, throughout whatever's going on in their day-to-day. And if you haven't done so already, please join our Slack channel. It's southfloриdatech.com/Slack. Or if you want to just join our newsletter, please just text your email to this number on the screen. And this is a little bit more about a resume distributor. So now I'm just going to hand over the mic to Tim. You can go ahead and share your screen whenever you're ready.
All right. All right, so some of you know me. I see some familiar faces, so thank you guys for coming out and then supporting me on this one. And the topic today is those introductions, and I call them conversation starters. And I like to have at least an overriding goal when I'm doing a conversation starter, which is evoking emotion. So I'll tell you just a little bit about me for those of you guys that don't know me. My name is Tim Goering, and I started my career out of the Naval Academy flying helicopters and King Airs in the United States Marine Corps. And I did that until I had daughters, and then everything needed to change. So I started a company with my brother in 1995, my first entrepreneurial adventure, doing network computing. And then I moved on to selling coronary heart stents with Johnson & Johnson. And then I went into the wealth management arena, and I started off as a sales guy and worked my way up into management, and then ultimately to being the president of a small federally chartered startup bank. So that was my second entrepreneurial venture. And then from that job, I went on and ran my last corporate job was running the state of Florida for the Bank of New York Mellon on the wealth management side. So that was about 6 years ago that I actually retired from banking and started MakingLuck. And MakingLuck, the whole idea was all the frustrations that I experienced having come out of the Marine Corps and not gotten any sales experience, not gotten any real sales training. I decided to kind of scratch my own itch. As I became a president of a bank and the managing director, the hardest, most challenging thing for me was hiring salespeople, even though I was paying them a lot of money. So I decided, well, why not complain about it anymore and just start a company. So 6 years ago, I started this, and I'll kind of dig in and just kind of let this thing evolve. And what will happen is, if depending on how interactive it is, I think because a lot of this is streaming, it'll be me talking. And then for those of you guys that are here, if we have time at the end, maybe we'll go into breakout rooms and you can, excuse me, you can practice what you learn, or you can do it your own way. I really won't, I promise not to be offended at all. If you've got a better way of introducing yourself and none of this has impact, that's totally fine too. And if you want to hear more, I'm easy to find on LinkedIn, and just look me up and you're happy to come see me do this. I do this about 6 to 10 times a week. And I have an open session every Wednesday morning with my core group of clients, and you're welcome to join that. And we change the topic every single week. So every week it's a new sales topic, and we dig in and we practice a lot. So here's what this one's all about. Where do you use intros, right? And most people think you just use it at the beginning. But what I've come to appreciate is we do this a lot. So when somebody says, what do? You got to know what to say. You got to nail it. This is your opportunity to really inspire confidence. When somebody says, what problems do you solve? You got to be able to crush that. We got to know this solid. Why should I do business with you? How are you different than the competition? Right? These are all things that some people don't give a lot of consideration to. And, I applaud anybody who joined us this morning, because you're giving this more thought than most people give it. They think they got it. Matter of fact, most employers tell me when I start working with them, well, I only hire people with experience, so they already know how to do all this. I'm like, yep, that's not what I found when I was paying people. Literally, I would pay them $150,000 salary with the expectation that they could make $500,000 to $700,000 a year. But if I said, how are you guys different than JP Morgan, they'd fall on their sword. And that's normal, right? Most people start making it up on the fly. Why do people need what you have? I think this one is a trap, and I'll go into that trap a little bit. Why should we meet? Do I need what you have? Why should folks refer to you? Why should they refer you any business? What do you say when you're at a networking event? And how do you introduce yourself when you're on a call for the very first time, which we're doing a lot more of in this COVID environment? So these are kind of some of the places that, believe it or not, you can use the same format that I'm going to roll out to you guys today. I'm going to give you a lot of background on it. And then at the end, I'm going to give you the actual 5 and the 30-second commercial. And I'm a big believer in that. Most people, they call it a 60-second elevator pitch, or they call it we're going to go around the room and do 60 seconds. I think the average person in these places that I outlined right here, they don't want you to talk for a minute when they say, how are you different? And if you talk for a minute at that point, you probably are at risk of losing them. So hopefully we won't, we'll get through this. So I pulled this one down off the internet for tech people, because here's the problem, right? And by the way, you can test this with people that really know you. Ask your mom, ask your kids, ask your spouse, your girlfriend, or your boyfriend, what do they think you do? And see if they can describe it. So I love this because, here's what your friends think you do. They think you're just a geek if you're in software. Here's what your mom thinks you do. You're crawling inside of the computer. Goodness knows what's in there. Here's what society thinks you do, which is totally different. Right? Here's what your boss thinks you do. We all kind of think we have these delusions of grandeur. We all think that what we do is pretty special. And the reality is that a lot of it is pretty mundane. So the problem that this chart really kind of illustrates is don't leave it to chance. When you're going to describe to people what you do, when you're going to introduce yourself, you want to do it with impact. You want to do it really tight so that they will remember it forever. So I want you to think right now of 3 adjectives that you would like other people to use when they're describing you. And I'm going to tell you mine, and then I'm going to open it up just to the people that are here live. I think we have at least 10 people here live. Maybe you guys can shout some out. You know, what are some adjectives that you guys want other people? Because I'm a big believer, if you're going to say something, you may as well have a goal. So I want people to think that I'm prepared, right? So when somebody asks me what I do, I need to sound prepared. I want people to think that I'm courageous. So they need to hear that in my voice. I need to say it in a way that sounds like I'm confident. And I'm not a very serious guy, so I have to go out of my way to get people to believe that Tim is sincere. Timmy hangs out at the Square Grouper in Jupiter, Florida, and likes to have a couple of drinks. But Tim is a serious, sincere person, and that needs to come across when I'm professional. So let me open it up to you guys just a little bit, see if I can get some feedback. What are some adjectives that you want people to use when they describe you?
Likable.
Why is that?
Well, because I'm in this disc thing that somebody got me into, and I'm a big eye, so I kind of need that. That's kind of one of the things that energizes me.
I think that's important because people do business with people they like, don't they, Jim?
I think so.
Yeah.
Dependable.
And there's a risk. You can.
Sorry.
Dependable. I like that one. Why dependable, Scott?
People want to know they can depend on you if they hire you to do something. They want to make sure you come on when you say you're going to be there.
Yeah. Yeah. Wouldn't it be nice if you could get likable and dependable into that first 30 seconds? Right. Anybody else?
Thorough.
Thorough. All right. I like that one a lot. You're going to be comprehensive in nature. You're going to make sure that you get everything in.
Okay,
Christina,
so
it looked like you were about to say something. Oh, good.
I would say collaborative, solutions oriented, and organized.
Yeah, I like that. I like that a lot. And that collaborative piece is really hard, right? If you're not, if you don't present yourself as collaborative, you're at risk of them thinking you're just going to be telling them what they should do, which is kind of condescending when you think about it. And I'm going to give you a word. I'm going to give you one word that I'm going to ask you to strike from your introduction. And it's going to blow your minds, I think, because it's a word that when I listen to other people's introductions at BNI meetings or networking events or online events like this, it's the most common word that I hear. And when I hired my first coach, he told me to stop saying it altogether. And it kind of shocked me. Matter of fact, it left me wondering at first, like, what am I going to do? So being authentic takes practice. Give me some easy ones. Like when people say, why should I do business with you? What are some common things that you hear from other people? Not you guys, but other people. What do salespeople typically say when you say, well, why should I do business with you? What are some of the things you hear?
They usually say they're the best.
Yeah, they're the best. That's a really common one. That's really common in the banking world. I mean, they call themselves First and Union and Community. And those words are like in 50 different banks all across the nation. What are some other things you hear?
They've been around for 100 years.
Yeah, we've been around for 100 years. We're best in breed, best in class. What else? I'll kind of lead the witnesses a little bit just to keep it moving. Top quality, one-stop shop, great reputation, financial stability. What's the problem with saying all this stuff in your introduction?
Same thing everybody else is saying.
Bingo, Scott's the winner. It's exactly what everybody else is saying. So you sound exactly like everybody else. And now all of a sudden you turned what could have been a very interactive, collaborative, to use Christine's word, introduction, it becomes cliche. And you sound exactly like everybody else. So you just put a big sign on your head that says, I'm a salesperson. And so I'm here to find out how much money you have and how much of your money I can have. And that's not where you're trying to take them. Right? I'm a big believer that sales doesn't need to be a dirty word. If I find out what you need and I go and get it and I bring it to you, that should be a good thing, regardless of the business that you're in. So here's that word that I'm going to make off limits. Here's my off limit sign. And this is when I first started this business, I hired a coach. I'm a big believer in getting an outside coach to keep you on track. And I called my coach in Detroit, Michigan, and I said, Rich, I'm really glad to meet you. Let's dig in. And he said, all right, well, Tim, why'd you do this business in the first place? And I said, I think it'd be fun to help people make more money and help people have a big impact on their companies. And he said, oh man, you're going to be terrible at this. I'm like, I can't believe I'm paying this guy money for this kind of coaching. And he says, well, don't you think helping people is condescending? And, the reality was what that's called is reactance theory. And as soon as you tell somebody you're going to help them, you accidentally put them in a low status situation and you elevate yourself to that high status. What I'm looking for in these introductions is equal business stature. We shouldn't feel like a vendor. We're not going to be talking up to our clients, right? But we also shouldn't make our clients feel like we're going to help you, you poor innocent victim. And what reactance theory tells us is that when we restrict somebody's freedom, when we tell them that we're going to help them or that other people need this, then the reaction that they have is resistance. But when we tell people, hey, you can do whatever you want, the reaction that they have is compliance. So we want to use reactance theory. You can Google it. There's a whole bunch of reading you can do. If you can't find it, let me know. I got lots of stuff on reactance theory because I study it because it helps in sales. So here's the disclaimer. There is no such thing as the perfect pickup line. That's why you don't hear that do you come here often anymore. Matter of fact, if you do hear it, it's usually in a joke setting, right? Do you come here often is how you make somebody laugh because you're saying something that everybody else says. So regardless of, in case you thought you were coming here to get the perfect introduction from Tim, you're not going to find that. What I'm going to give you is a format that other people have found is a very successful format for getting your point across. And hopefully if you use it, if you put your personality on this, your communication style on this, I think you'll have some good success with it. But there is no such thing as the perfect pickup line. So there's no magic. So we start ours with what we call a pattern interrupt. And just to put that backwards, we're going to try to interrupt the normal pattern. In other words, right away, I want them to think, wow, Tim is not like the others that I've spoken to in his industry. Wow, this person is different. And you only have about 2 to 5 seconds to connect with another human being like that. And most people, if it's a business setting, their thought pattern is, you're going to try and sell me something, and I'm going to try to keep from getting sold something I don't need. So they've got their defenses up. And what I want them to do is lower their defenses, right? And so it's very important that whatever I say first matters. So one of the pattern interrupts that I use to just interrupt that normal pattern is, I don't know if this makes any sense, right? And then I put that big fat word but after it. Now, they come into the thing thinking, no matter what Tim says, I'm going to say no, because most people are contrarian by nature, right? It's a defense mechanism. They come in thinking, I'm going to say no. So I want them to be able to say no. Now, if I do an apology, let's say I apologize to you and I'm saying, hey, I'm really sorry for yelling at you, but you were being mean. That but is a one big eraser. It negates everything I've already said. So just like that, I use that same opportunity here. I don't know if this makes any sense, but, and as soon as I say but, what that means is, oh yeah, this totally makes sense. It is a subliminal sneak attack right from the beginning. I don't know if this makes any sense, but. And then I go to a third-party story. And the third-party story is, the reason it works, again, I'm using a lot of psychology here, is because of another theory called attribution theory. And what attribution theory tells us is, when you're talking about yourself, you'll attribute all your success to your own efforts. And when you are talking about yourself, you'll attribute your failures to outside influences. You'll look to blame. You'll look to find excuses. But as soon as we move this to a third-party story, like rather than me tell you why you should come to Tim Goering for coaching, why don't I tell you why my clients come? And now all of a sudden we're talking about somebody else. So you can attribute both success and failure to somebody else. It's not about you. So I'm going to relieve pressure in this situation by using the pattern interrupt effectively. When we start practicing this, if we have time at the end, this is the single biggest thing that people will leave out. But I'm telling you, this is a pressure release. It's amazing how those third-party stories will work. I don't know if we have any biblical scholars on the line, but third-party stories have been around for a long time. Matter of fact, we are a storytelling species. Right? We were drawing stick figures on walls when they were just cavemen. And when Moses came down from the mountain with the 10 commandments, the original 10 rules, the 10th commandment was, thou shalt not covet thy neighbor's goods and services. In other words, don't confuse that with number 7, thou shalt not covet thy neighbor's wife. Don't do that either. But you're not supposed to want what other people have, right? We've always wanted what other people have. So when I go into third-party story mode and I say, I don't know if this makes any sense, but why don't I tell you what my clients think it does? Why don't I tell you why the people that are already doing business with me like it? Now they're listening, they're curious because of FOMO, which you guys have all heard of, the fear of missing out, right? These are the folks that are thinking, wow, if there's an idea that I'm missing out on, I want it, right? It's keeping up with the Joneses 101. And that's what we're going to be on the lookout for. So there's the pattern interrupt. We're going to try to say something different right from the beginning. And a lot of people go with humor here, right? I don't, because Tim is a serious guy. Tim is sincere and prepared, right? Tim is courageous, because I don't want this to be a cheeky response. I want people to take me seriously when I'm in a business setting. So I've got a 5, a 30, and a 60-second version of my conversation starter. And the reason I have a 5 is what I found is sometimes when people say, hey, Tim, what do you do? They don't really care. And that was a shocker. But what they're really saying is, I hope Tim will ask me what I do. Or, you know what, I'm just kind of curious. Are you a police officer? Are you an FBI agent? Are you a Navy SEAL? Are you a sales guy? What are you? So I used a 5-second conversation starter to find out whether they're going to earn the right to hear my 30-second one. And then I'm going to use the 30-second one to find out whether it makes sense for us to have a conversation, either now or later, right? And I'm going to outline exactly what those look like. But it's the gist of it is, I always want to get permission. This is permission-based selling, consent-based selling. Until they give me a signal that says it would be a good idea to continue, I want them to know that I'm going to let them preserve their dignity. I'm not going to keep going if they don't want me to. So I like to have some goals. If I'm going to open my mouth, I want to have a goal. I stole this one from Cheap Trick, the band. I don't know if you guys remember Cheap Trick. Some of you might be too young. But one of my favorite songs by Cheap Trick was, I want you to want me, right? And this changed my mind on selling. I was in a big conference up in Baltimore, and we were doing one of those best practices rounds. And this one guy said, I don't want people to like me. I want people to want me to like them. When you can get the people that you're talking to saying, I can't wait till Monica comes back, because when Monica's around, it's good for me, then you win. Right? You want them to want you to talk. And until you get that, you shouldn't be talking. Otherwise, they're thinking, look at this guy just burying himself. I don't even need this. Think about those people that come to your door and knock on your door in the middle of the afternoon. You don't know what they need. I stole this one from Richardson Training in my very first formal selling job, selling coronary heart stents. If I'm going to talk, I want to engage curiosity or inspire confidence. Otherwise, I don't want to talk at all. Doesn't make any sense. If I'm going to talk, I want to allow them, I want to create an environment where the person I'm talking to can move from certainty to doubt. And here's what I mean by that. They're trying to be certain they don't need this. I don't need sales training. I don't need a new CRM. I don't need my garage floor done for Scott. And I don't know what all you guys do out there. I don't need new health insurance, but whatever it is, I want them in my quick 30 seconds to think, well, wait a minute, maybe I do need that. Maybe I need to hear more. And that's what I want them to say at the end is, tell me more. I want them to want me to hang around. And what I'm really doing here is I'm relieving pressure, because I know they're like this. So I'm making it okay right from the beginning with my pattern interrupt. Hey, I don't know if this makes any sense. Or, hey, this isn't for everybody, but. They don't know the psychology of the word but I do. So I throw that word but in there on purpose. And then my last one is evoke covetous. That comes right from the 10th commandment, the covetousness clause. I made that up, so you're not going to find that in the sales book. It's funny because I used to say evoke covetous. It's actually evoke covetousness. Turns out I'm not that good with grammar. So covetous is, I don't know, there's adjectives and nouns, whatever it is. The noun is covetousness, but that just doesn't sound as cool as evoke covetous. So I'll leave it the way it is. And the last thing is I want to connect. I want to find some commonality. I want them to think that our goals are aligned, because at the end of the day, they should be aligned. They're thinking, what's in this for me? So I'm going to allow them the luxury of thinking, what's in this for me? And here's the big one. The very first slide that I showed you was conversation starters, but it was also about evoking emotion. Because I'm a big believer. I use the Sandler selling system. David Sandler was a genius. And one of David Sandler's most famous quotes was, people make decisions emotionally and they justify them intellectually. And a lot of people think people make decisions intellectually. That's why they throw all their features and benefits and facts and figures at people. But the reality is, if you attach some emotion to it, they may never understand what it is that you do, but they will definitely understand what frustration is, what worry is, what embarrassment is, what disappointment is. As soon as I said those words, you guys were all thinking, I know exactly what that is. So if you're feeling weird about this, the reason he said this quote, sales is a Broadway play performed by a psychologist, is that he wanted everybody to kind of get the feeling that, you know, there is a lot of psychology in selling. And the right thing to do for the people you're selling to is to allow them to be the hero of their own story, which means you might need to pretend like you don't know nearly as much as you know. And it's a good idea to do that anyway. You know, here's another word you can strike from your vocabulary. I understand, because you probably don't understand. And so if somebody comes to you and says, oh, my dog died, and you say, oh, I totally understand. I had a dog too, and I love that dog. All right, well, you know, they're the ones having the emotion right now. Why not let them have the floor? And you don't understand the relationship they had with their dog, or when they bought that dog, or how close they were to that dog. I'm a weird dog owner. My dog sleeps in the bed under the covers with me. So I'm going to miss that dog when that dog's gone. But not everybody does that. Some people still keep their dogs chained up out back. So I'm a big word economist. There's a fantastic YouTube video on Jerry Seinfeld out there. And all you have to do is type in Jerry Seinfeld and Pop-Tart joke. And he'll go into how he spent 2 years writing a 1-minute comedy bit about a Pop-Tart. And it is absolutely hilarious. And what he does is he really outlines the power of subtraction, not addition. You don't add words. So what I would say is, if you can't nail this thing in 20 to 30 seconds, then you should probably spend some time scripting it out, saying it out loud, and subtracting words until you get it down to that 20 or 30 seconds, because it really is about subtraction. So I'm going to dig in a little bit now and tell you the danger of trying to explain and convince and justify to people why they need what we have, right? And the opposite of that is, rather than explaining what we do, maybe you can talk about some things that they can see or smell or taste or feel or hear, right? So take, for example, electricity. It'd be kind of weird if I tried to explain how electricity works to most of you. I got a C in electrical engineering 2 semesters in a row at the United States Naval Academy, and I'm still not sure I could explain electricity anyhow. So rather than explain electricity, why don't I just tell some stories about what electricity does for other people? So putting it into a third-party story, can you imagine? By the way, as soon as I say that word imagine, I regress everybody to their child ego state. It's like you're at Disney World again with your friends, right? So suspend disbelief. Imagine what it would be like if we didn't have electricity, right? When COVID came about, we wouldn't be able to do this. You wouldn't have computers, you wouldn't have lights. Imagine if we didn't have electricity. At the end of the day, when the sun goes down, you're done. You're going to light candles and have smoke in your room, or you're done. Imagine being in South Florida without air conditioning. So as soon as I say things like that, I throw that power word in, imagine. Now you in your mind are trying to decide, I need electricity. You still don't know what electricity is or what electricity does, but you in your mind, based on those 3 little tiny snippets, know that you can want some electricity, or at least you're jealous of those people that have electricity. And all we need is one big hurricane to turn off our air conditioning for one day, and you'll hear everybody complain about how important electricity was after all. Right? And I think that's what you want to try to do with your business as you craft your 30-second commercial. Because what I want people to do is raise their eyebrows when I start talking. When I'm watching people, I want them to go, okay, I'm interested. Because confused people don't say yes. And I think that's the problem with people trying to describe what it is that they do, is that you're at great risk of confusing them. I like to think I'm a pretty intelligent guy, but as soon as somebody starts talking about life insurance products or property and casualty insurance or even health insurance, go to the health insurance website and see how confused you get. We got an expert on here, by the way, with Eric Gear here. So feel free to call an expert. But the reality is, even if you try to explain insurance to me, I'm not going to understand it. And there are so many different things that you can work in there that it's crazy. So instead, you could ask 3 did you know questions. The next slide is going to be do you know. This one is did you knows, right? So the whole idea here is I want to ask questions that get people thinking about something that I need. Do you know that some people just store everything they have in their garage? For example, I'm looking at that great garage picture behind Scott. Right? Did you know that some people had tried to paint their floors, but just turned it into an absolute disaster and had to repaint them 6 months later because they just didn't do it right? Did you know that you could actually access your attic with a no-kidding ladder that came down either electrically or with a mechanical advantage so you didn't have to get up there? And when I say those did you knows, you start relating to the did you know. And then I can use that word imagine again, and I can say, imagine if you didn't have to think about that. Did you know that if you went to the website right now to try to find insurance, that no matter how hard you looked, when you think you found the best price, you could literally give a professional insurance person like Mike Sims down there an opportunity to get on the website and he could find somebody that could do it cheaper in less than 10 minutes? Imagine if you had somebody to go look for that stuff for you. And that imagine thing says, oh, I want that. It creates that covetousness, that fear of missing out. So there's another good technique that you can think about. So here's a problem also is sometimes people use a 1-word or a 2-word descriptor that makes you literally hit a wall. So if I say, what do you do? And you're a chiropractor and you say, well, I'm a chiropractor. Then what happens is people go to the only chiropractic experience they've ever had in their life, and they put you in a box with that person. So when you say, oh, I'm a technician, well, you're all of a sudden in the box with the only other technician that person knows. Let's hope they respect that person, or you're in the box with that person. So instead of saying, I'm a chiropractor, or I'm a sales coach, or I'm a banker, or I'm an attorney, or I'm an accountant, I can just ask some questions. Do you know anybody? That's different than did you know. This is a do you know. And what I'm trying to do is I'm trying to make that connection that I talked to you about a second ago. So if somebody says, what do? You can say quickly, I'm a chiropractor. And then you can start asking questions. And you can say, do you know anybody that's got pain in their back that's so bad that they can't get out of bed in the morning sometimes? And by the way, keep this real. You know anybody that can't bend over and play with their kids? You guys know anybody that has one of those stand-up desks in their office? Anybody know anybody like that? Just out of curiosity. Nobody knows anybody with back pain? Oh yeah, somebody does. Scott, you raised your hand. Who do you know?
Hey man, I got back pain, you know?
Oh, that's the best answer ever. So if he says it's me, that's even better than my brother. All right. So if you get a prospect to actually say, yeah, that's me you're describing, you've already won. And then you can say, yeah, well, I work with people like your brother. All right. If he says, yeah, you know what, that's me that you're describing. All right, well, I work with people like you that have the kind of problems. And that's the trick. Rather than tell everybody that they need the product or service that I'm representing, I find out if they have a problem that my product or service can answer the call for before I start talking about what I do. So I've made that connection, and that's what I'm looking for. So if you're thinking now, how do I make that connection? In Sandler, we call it pain. And all pain is the difference between where they are with their frustration or their fear and where they need to go, which is a place where they don't have that. And that's the real key, is just trying to figure out how to transition. Nobody's going to change. Nobody's going to buy what you have until the pain of the current circumstances is greater than the pain of change or the cost of change. So we can't insist that people change until they declare that they've got a problem that's been around for a while that they absolutely have tried to fix on their own with no success, that's having an impact on their life that's unacceptable. And I've got to get them to say that out loud. So think about your best clients. And that's that little bubble over here on the left. When you think about your clients, just go to your best clients and say, where were you before you were working with me? Hopefully it's a picture like this. What was it like during the process working with me? And where are you now, right? After you've become a client. And whatever they say, as you listen to your best clients, that's what you want to tell your prospects, right? And now it's a third-party story. Rather than me tell you what I do, why don't I tell you what my clients think I do? And now you're just telling a story. Here's where they were. Here's the problems that they had. Here's how we work together, and here's where they are now. Tell that to your prospects. And now you're not talking about yourself, so you're bringing attribution theory into play. You're talking about other people that are already paying you. So it's an embedded reference. It's an embedded third-party story. So I'm a big believer that you've got to know what your challenges are. You've got to list all those challenges ahead of time. And then when you're talking to people, at a minimum, you need to find their pie, P-I-E. I made this up too, but I only made it up last week, so it's still being refined, right? And the pie is this. What problem, P, does your product or service solve? What impact, I, does that have on the people's lives that you're talking to? And then, because I believe in what David Sandler said, that people buy emotionally and they justify it intellectually, I want to find out what emotion is attached to that impact that that problem is having in their life. And if you can find out their pie, well, I should put it that little pie symbol. I don't know much about math, but I know it's like 3.14. Oh yeah, that's what I'm going to do moving forward. Thanks for the genius attack. You guys already helped me and it was just me talking. So here are mine, right? There's no way anybody's going to do business with Tim Goering unless you're having difficulty differentiating yourself from the competition, or you're getting way too many think it overs, or people are beating you up on price, or you're doing a lot of unpaid consulting, giving people free advice, or you're having trouble developing a sense of urgency with your clients, or you're not getting enough referrals from your best clients, or you're uncomfortable leaving a voicemail because you don't have a strategy, and you don't have a strategy for getting past the gatekeeper, or you're getting all tense inside and you've got call reluctance. You don't want to just pick up the phone and make those phone calls because usually you're not comfortable with what you're going to say in the first 30 seconds, right? And you don't know how to get prospects to acknowledge that they need to do something, and you don't know how to close the deal. If you don't have those challenges, you're not going to work with Tim. So I can turn that into a little tiny 30-second commercial if I just give some thought. And I got this from my clients. This is what my clients told me they were struggling with. So the only reason you're going to work with me is if we figure that out. And these are those emotional words. So I want to use these emotional words in my 30-second commercial on purpose, so that the clients will say, yeah, I'm frustrated, I'm worried, I'm concerned. So when you're talking to your clients, say, well, what was the problem? What was the challenge that you were having? And what emotion was associated with that? And whatever emotion they say, those are the words you want to steal. Frustrated, worried, and concerned are my best friends because I'm not that smart. I tell people this all the time, nobody believes me. But the reality is, when I'm under the pressure of having a conversation with another human being, I forget all my good stuff. So I have to come up with little mnemonic devices to help me remember it. So I like disappointed and disgusted and pressured and fed up and aggravated and vulnerable, but I always use frustrated, worried, and concerned. Because if I use frustrated, worried, and concerned over and over, I'll remember them. And it's the middle of my 30-second commercial that I'm going to get to in a little bit here. So I want to know what those emotional words are. So I start with a 5-second commercial. And the 5-second commercial, it's actually a funny story because when I discovered the 5-second commercial, I used it for the very first time on the founder of Palm Beach Tech. He probably doesn't even remember it, but I'll never forget what he said to me, because the challenge here is in 5 seconds, can I find out if the person I'm talking to wants to hear more about what I'm doing? So I used this on Joe Russo. I said to him, we were at a networking event. He's like, hey, what do you do? And I said, I'm a sales trainer. So when I say sales trainer, what picture pops into your head? And without batting an eyelash, he looked at me and he said, I picture you standing in front of a car dealership wearing a cowboy hat, carrying a bullwhip. And I'm like, I don't think Joe wants to talk about sales training, does he? So why would I embarrass myself at a networking event trying to convince somebody that they need sales training when they clearly have a low opinion of it? Maybe he's already the best salesman in the world. I have something to learn from him. Maybe not, but maybe. but I'm not going to force my views on him. So I discovered, wow, that 5-second commercial saved my life, because I was about to do my brilliant 30-second commercial on him, and he would have laughed at me. And that would have made me feel bad as a human being. And the reality is, somebody, some are going to say yes, some are going to say no. So what? Someone else is waiting. And that's the attitude I take as a sales coach, is not everybody's going to want to buy from you. So I have 3 or 4 different anecdotal things that I say when I'm doing my 5-second commercial. But the gist of it is, I'm going to tell them who I am. I'm Tim Goering. I'm a sales trainer. And then I'm going to use one of these 3 questions, not all of them. Hey, when I say that, what picture pops into your head? And then they're talking, not me. When they're talking, you're winning, you're getting clues. I like to play Texas Hold'em, and I want a poker tell. I want to know what they think of me before I start talking. So this was a poker tell with Joe. Joe didn't want to talk to Tim. Tim's okay with that. Another one that I use is, hey, so let's, make it and put it in your world. So I'm an insurance advisor. Hey, that means something different to everybody. What's that mean to you? And they'll tell you what they think. I'm a chiropractor. That means something different to everybody. What's that mean to you? Not all chiropractors are created equal. Some of them are in a strip center and they're going to x-ray your spine and tell you that it's curved and give you a massage and some drugs. Some have these world-class exercise studios and they're going to do all kinds of stuff because they represent NBA and NFL teams. If I know there's an incumbent, then I go ahead and give them credit for that. Right? So if I'm talking to a millionaire, I'm going to assume that he has a financial advisor already. So if I say, hey, I'm a financial advisor with UBS. Hey, what do you like about your financial advisor? If he doesn't have one, he's going to say, I don't have one. But if he does, he's going to immediately go, why would he ask me that? And no matter what he says, I'm going to say, well, what else do you like? What else do you like? So I want to make what I do all about them. And I do that in 5 seconds. So by the way, I am going to attach this presentation in the chat function, and I'll email it to Monica. So if you want this, I'm happy to give it to you. It's my gift, right? And you're not going to find this in a book because I haven't written it yet. Eventually, I'll get around to doing that. But that's, any ghostwriters, let me know. It's harder than it looks. Now, if they respond appropriately, in other words, their eyebrows go up and they're like, or they say, you know what, tell me more about that. Then I'm going to go on to my 30-second commercial. Now, this slide looks busy, but I'm going to unpack it for you. So in my 30-second commercial, I'm just going to do a pattern interrupt, and then I'm going to associate some emotional words with some intellectual stuff, and then I'm going to do a hook statement at the end. And by the way, I'm going to keep this tight because it's about word subtraction. It's like songwriting. Don't add words to the song. Welcome to the Hotel California, down the street from the Circle K, across from the hospital, after the second light, wrecks the song. Just keep it tight. And the only way you're going to do this is practice. Here, I got some great news for you. The overwhelming majority of people in business that call themselves professionals don't practice. That's the bottom line. That's been my experience. Now, I don't know a professional athlete that doesn't practice. I don't know a musician that doesn't practice. I don't know a politician, contrary to popular news briefs, that don't practice their speeches, but professionals practice. So here's what it looks like. Hey, I'm Tim. I'm an executive coach, and my pattern interrupt is, hey, not everybody needs coaching, but why don't I tell you why my clients do? And typically, they're frustrated that they're not getting in front of enough people, or they're worried that when they finally get in front of them, they don't know what to say. And their concern is that ultimately that's hitting their bottom line and they're not making the money they want. And if that's not you, that's okay. And that's my hook statement at the end, right? It's crazy. I put some different ones in, so I'll expand on those hook statements and pattern interrupts because I think they're important. What we do is not for everyone, but not everybody needs this, but some people already have an insurance provider, but those are all pattern interrupts designed to relieve pressure. And again, I just use the frustrated, worried, and concerned because it's fun. And I can use this for anybody's industry on the fly because I'm using an outline. And the hook statement, here's some hook statements for you. Hopefully you're okay. Instead of me saying at the end, is that you or anybody you know? Or does that sound like something you need? When I say that to people, what I found is they lie to me. It's just like me saying, do these pants make my butt look fat? What they're saying is, please lie to me. I can't handle the truth, right? So hopefully you're okay gives them credit. And if you want to read a fascinating book, it's called Go for No. And the idea here is, since I know they wanted to say no, I make them say no. So I say, hopefully you're okay. And they have to, if they want to hear more, they have to say no. If they want to stop the conversation, they have to say yes. Uh-oh, danger, danger, Will Robinson. That's a really old reference. They don't know what's hit them. Hopefully you're okay. No, I'm not okay. I want to hear more. Awesome. Let's dig in on the pie. What's the problem? What's the impact it's having? What's the emotion associated with it? Tell me your story. I'm going to do some listening. I've also got this one I call It's Nutso. I made the acronym up. I make up acronyms for everything because I can't remember stuff. If that's not you, that's okay. It's Nutso. If that's not you, that's okay. I'm relieving pressure with my closed statement. This closing statement is really, really important because this is where I'm relieving pressure, right? And I'm putting the ball in their court and I'm preserving their dignity. I put Waita in there, but I really don't have time to explain it much, but it's one of my two favorite questions. Whenever I tell a story, like let's say they say, no, you know what, I am okay, I don't need that. And I'm like, okay, when I said that, who are you thinking about? W-A-Y-T-A, Waita. In other words, they just told me, no, thank you, Tim. I don't need an executive coach. And I'm like, okay, yeah, but when I said other people were frustrated, they aren't getting in front of enough people, or they're worried they're not saying the right stuff, or they're concerned they're not making enough money, who are you thinking about? That's the Waita. In other words, you told me no, and I'm so okay with that I'm going to ask for a referral on the spot. The worst thing you can say is no, and then no again. Some will, some won't. So what? Someone else is waiting. And the last one that I love to use is imagine, right? Imagine is that power word that regresses everybody to that Disney World experience with their parents. Hopefully that was positive. If it wasn't positive, then go wherever your imagination took you. But imagine you didn't have those frustrations. Imagine you weren't experiencing that. So somebody give me any sales industry, anything at all, I don't care, on the fly. Monica, give me something hard. Actually, they'll think we scripted it if you do it. Let me call on somebody that doesn't know me. Christine, you don't know me, do you?
No, I don't know you.
All right, so give me something to sell and I'll turn it into a 30-second commercial on the fly.
Vacuum cleaners.
You know, not everybody even needs a new vacuum cleaner, but let me tell you why some people do. They're frustrated the vacuum cleaner they had was great when they bought it, but it's just not doing the job anymore. And they're worried that if they go looking for a vacuum cleaner, all they're going to see is these crazy expensive ones now. But the concern is that if they don't get a good vacuum cleaner, their wife is going to hammer them because it's their job to do the vacuuming, the husband's job to do the vacuuming, and it's just not working. But hopefully you're okay. I just made that up on the fly because I used the format, right? And the format is pattern interrupt, emotional words associated with what the thing does, and then a hook statement. So I've got 8 minutes left, and I always like to end on time. So why don't I open it up for questions? And Monica, we probably won't have time for, well, we might have time for one breakout room. You could put everybody one-on-one with somebody they don't know, and they could try it. But let me see if there are any questions for 2 minutes here before we try and do that.
Yeah, so if anyone has any questions, you can just take yourself off mute or just write the question in the chat. And in the meantime, I'll check social media too.
So I got a question, Tim. So when you get into these one-on-ones, what happens when you get shut down 2 or 3 times? Because, you know, they'll start off with the I'm fine, no, I don't need this. Because, you know, that happens all the time. So what happens if they keep giving you no and they don't give you a referral? What do you do then?
I don't think I understand the hypothetical. So let's maybe make it real, Jim. So you go ahead, you be the one shutting me down.
Okay.
Right, so let's start off with Timmy, what do you do?
Oh, Timmy, what do you do?
I'm an executive coach. So a picture probably popped into your head. What do you think an executive coach is?
Yeah, I don't think I need an executive coach.
Hey, no problem. Not everybody does. Okay, if I take 30 seconds to tell you why other people think it's a good idea.
Okay.
If he had said no, because remember, he insisted a second ago he was going to say no. And I shut him down in 2 questions. But let's say it happened, all right? If he says no, I got to be okay with that. Not everybody wants to hear what you have. And I make it a point. I don't sell to people that don't have problems that my product or service solves, right? So he said yes in this case. So I would tell him, hey, dude, this might not even be for you. But other people are frustrated that they're not getting in front of enough people, right? Or they're worried that when they finally get there, they're not saying the stuff that advances the cause. And their concern is that's affecting their bottom line. But hopefully you're okay, Jim.
Well, that doesn't really bother me, but I still don't think I need that.
Totally normal. I don't suppose when I was saying that just then, you thought of somebody like a business owner that does need it, do you? That's my way, Tom.
Yeah, I got a couple people in mind, but the reality is they're a lot like me. They just don't want to deal with that salesperson. And
no problem, man. I get it. I get it. And when I get rejected, I want to be that sound, sober, sensible voice of reason. So if they change their mind later, because when he leaves, he's going to be thinking, wow, why did that guy not beg me to stay? High status, low status, equal business stature. And when he does have a need, or 3 months or 3 years from now, somebody says, oh my God, my sales team is driving me crazy. They're just not getting in front of enough deals. They're using COVID as an excuse. And when they get there, they're totally blowing it with what they say. Then Jim will be like, I got a guy. I hope. Or he'll say, I don't have a guy. And I don't care because somebody's waiting. It's just not Jim. Right?
Thank you.
It's that kind of resilience. It's knowing what I say that gives me the confidence to say it and get rejected. Any other questions, or you want to throw it? You want to try it? All right. Well, if there's no question, then I will close by letting Monica throw you guys into a breakout room.
Oh,
I'll let her choose how many people are in there. And you guys can try to introduce yourself with your new skills and see if you can set up a meeting.
So Nikki did have a question before we break out into those rooms, is sometimes when you do the takeaway and leave them with an awesome tidbit of what you offer, and take it away with, but I know you don't need this, people want it more. Okay, it wasn't a question, it was a comment. Okay, thank you for
well, that. And that's called a takeaway.
Right.
Right. It's a tactic that as soon as they think you're talking about somebody else, they want to draw the attention back to them. It's part of that attribution theory psychology that we talked about very early on. Right. Mm-hmm. Everybody wants to. It's that whole philosophy is who has 2 thumbs and likes to talk about Tim all day long. This guy. Right? I may not be much, but I'm all I think about. Right? And the idea here is as soon as when we're talking about me, it's in a good conversation. But as soon as I say, hey, it's no problem, I don't suppose you know anybody else, they're like, hold on a second, we were talking about me. That was just a defense mechanism they put up because they didn't want to be sold. So she's right. It's the takeaway.
Right. Right. And I mean, I had a question before we do the breakout rooms. I mean, we have about 3 minutes left. So when you're doing your 30-second pitch, do you always start off with asking about the other person? Like, oh, what do you do? And then you kind of gear your pitch towards whatever you think they'd be interested in? Or do you go ahead and just stick with your pitch consistently?
Yeah, so if this was a session on networking, then yes, Monica, to your point, I'm a big believer in the givers get. Right. But I go deeper than just what do you do? I'm prepared with my first 3 questions. Mm-hmm. So when I say, what do you do? And you say, I work at Palm Beach Tech, I always make this face. Do I look confused right now?
Yeah.
I'm like, well, help me out. Like, who's your ideal client? That's my first question. And then maybe you crush it, maybe you don't. My second question is, all right, well, help me understand when your clients brag about you, what do they say? I'm doing the circle chart, right? But I'm doing it backwards because I want them to try to articulate the problems that they solve. They still might not be able to do it. And then the third question is, since we're in a networking room, if I was going to introduce you, how do you want me to introduce you? And in those 3 questions, they're going to understand that Tim cares about them. Now, as soon as they don't know the answer, who's your ideal client? When clients brag about you, what do they say? If I was going to introduce you, how do you want me to introduce you? As soon as they don't know an answer, they feel pressure they'll put it on me, and they'll say, well, how would you want to be introduced? Oh, funny you should ask.
Yeah.
And now I'm ready to do my 30-second commercial. As soon as they feel uncomfortable talking about themselves, they'll turn it on me. And by the way, I am sincere. I believe that if they can answer those 3 questions, and if I can help them answer it, and I can make an introduction, then they subliminally owe me. And if I get enough people around town owing me a favor, they'll pay in. Some of them will pay off on those favors, and I'll get an introduction.
Right.
And I'll thank them for that. So I believe in the givers get, Monica. Yes.
Right. No,
That's a whole
awesome.
other class. I got
Yeah.
more. I have 1,000 hours of content, but you only asked me to talk for an hour.
Yeah, we could definitely do a second session or a follow-up, maybe next, or I mean, 2021 is in 2 months, you know, so next year or possibly December. I mean, it looks like we're just at time, so I don't think we'll have time for the breakout rooms, but if anybody has any last minute questions for Tim, if not, I do have one more. It's kind of just about I don't know how familiar you are with the sales psychology, but I've heard like something to get people to remember you or even just associate, yourself with whatever they're interested in is increasing their endorphin level by like either making them smile or making them laugh or talking about something that they love, like the dog. Like, how do you know when people know it's genuine rather than just, part of the sales pitch? Like, how do you consistently make it genuine?
I think there's a whole bunch of questions in there that I heard.
Yeah.
And first, let me say, yes, I believe in the psychology. And matter of fact, I probably study it way too much. I believe in priming. And here's what I mean by priming. If I just tell a little story, I can tell a story. Let's say I tell a story about a roller coaster ride at Walt Disney World. Yeah, I can tell that story in 30 seconds. And what'll happen is your blood will start going through your veins a little bit faster, and the hair will stand up on your arms a little bit, and your adrenaline will start going, and now you're physiologically primed to have a better conversation. So I use a lot of bonding and rapport techniques using transactional analysis, DISC, primary sensory dominance, neuro-linguistic programming. All of that stuff is fascinating to me, and I could spend hours talking about it because, yeah, I believe. And the gist of it is this: if you are trying to sound sincere, which was your last question embedded there, I think the trick is to fake it till you make it. And I really do mean that. Like, if you don't really care, pretend like you care. And when you pretend like you care by preparing your questions and you ask better questions, what will happen is people will start liking you more. And when they like you more, they'll do business with you. And you'll find out that caring is a good thing, and you'll start caring for real. It turns out that the givers get being selfless is selfish because it works so well that you'll gain if you're selfless. So that's selfish. Whoa, that's hard to unpack.
I mean, that was just a great way to end it. I love that. I've never heard that before.
I just made that up on the fly.
Awesome. Well, Tim,
All
thank
right.
you so much. It's 11:02. Thank you guys all for joining us today on this Friday. I hope everybody has a safe weekend. Tim, if you want to just close us off, and I'll go ahead and end the meeting for everybody.
So I would say is make your own luck. If you run into a wall, give me a shout. We can discuss it.
Awesome. All right, Tim, thank you so much. Bye, everybody.
All right. Thanks for having me.